hello everyone, and welcome to this week's lap guide for IMSA Week 10 at Spa with the Ferrari. So let's have a look around. So, lucky enough, on the way into La Source, it's quite easy labelled out for us. See on the outside here with the braking zone, got a 100 board here and the 50 board, so you're going to be using the 100 board as your braking reference, like this is your braking point, and then the 50 board is actually going to be quite nice as an indicator for your turning in point. So it's kind of nice labelled out for us, but into the braking zone for the source itself, as you see, 100 metre board, bring up the brake pressure to about 85-90% into the T1, especially we had a tailwind this week for the bus stop and into the source, so it's quite tricky. You had to use a bit more brake pressure to get the car stopped, but that will obviously change if you've got a headwind and stuff like that. But on the way in, you see the main approach is a lot of brake, 50 metre board, start turning in. Into the source, I would recommend trying to get as close, if not use the inside curb here. Obviously don't use like the full inside, like where the Astra is, because the actual curb's got a lip on the inside, so the car will bottom and bounce. But you want to just try and get your right wheels well into or onto this curb here on the inside. So on the way in, down the gears, down to first with the Ferrari, due to the FIA stack. On the way in, as you see if I go to chase now, you want to be aiming to get onto this curb here on the outside, on the inside, sorry. You see, as soon as my right wheels touch the curb, you'll be back on the power now. But it's very important at this point here, you don't just jump on the throttle to like 90-95% and just hold the steering lock and think it'll grip on the exit. Just be a bit patient. You just got to hold the steering, like hold the throttle at 75-80% while you still got the lock on. And as you slowly release the lock, just be a bit wary because the car will then start to like slip and try and slide on the exit. So obviously if you got a bit too much power on, the car will be moving around a bit, so it's quite easy to detect what you're doing wrong. But on the exit, you see, we just got to slowly build the throttle up. Don't just, as soon as you get off the lock, get on 100% throttle, because again, the car will slip on exit here. It's very, very tricky on the traction zone around here. But on the exit, you're going to be running all the way out. You can just use a little bit of this curb. If you're bouncing on the outside curb, you've gone power too early, and you just try to commit to on the exit, so don't do that. But also, you've got to be a bit careful with this like runoff curb, especially in the Ferrari this week. As soon as you use any sort of runoffs like these, you get instant traction control interference, and it was just you'd lose so much time for free over a lap. But on this lap, you see, I just use a little bit of it, but you can even hear it now. It just starts ever so slightly kicking in, so just be a bit careful of that when you're using the exit of T1. But realistically, if you can just keep your left wheels like around where this like green Astra part is, you should be fine, and as long as you're not on top of the sausage curb, you'll be fine as well. But you got a nice little run up to Eau Rouge. Turn in pretty early. Make sure you cut as much on the left hand side as possible. Obviously the more you cut over here, the nicer the entry approach is. You're not too tight on the apex here, and then because of that, it just kills the speed up the hill. But it's all about steering input here. You just got to be super smooth, minimal steering input. Just aim as soon as you can, aim straight, cut over this. You see on this lap here, I cut well over. You only get the slowdown once your right wheel is on this line here, so like a full cut. So, but you can get away with cutting quite a lot here. People forget this, and it actually just gains you a tiny little bit of time for free as well on the run down the Camel. Bring it over to the right, keep it nice and tight to the white line here. I'm going to slowly move across. Don't just dawdle on another track, and don't just instantly go to the left. Into Le Com, again, lucky enough around here. Got a 100 board here, and also a curb. So this area here is your braking zone for the entire sector. For the entire section, sorry. On the way in, you want to be pretty aggressive on the brakes on the way in. You see here, I do actually before the curb on the brakes. You can actually brake on the curb depending on how you want to approach the apex of the first part of the Le Com chicane. If you want to early apex it, I would recommend going in a bit harder, stopping the car, turning in a bit early. Or as I will do here, I try and like get on the curb a little bit later, so because of that I need to roll a bit more speed in. But up on the outside curb, you see, very heavy on the brakes, 80-90%. Trail brake it in. Use all the curb on the way in. Very, very important. I think people actually forget about. Get up as far up on this curb as possible. It just allows you this extra bit of track usage on the way in, helps the entry and helps you roll the speed in. As you can imagine, if you're just on the white line, this becomes a lot tighter, especially on the newer build of Spa we have now compared to previous years. Le Combe now is a lot harder due to the amount of gravel on the inside. So you can see just by widening this up, gives you a nice angle approach. But on the way into the corner, slow release of brakes. I'm still in third gear here. The Ferrari, you can go to second here already, but third's absolutely fine. And you want to be trying to hit the curb at this point here. If you hit the curb a bit too early, so like this point now, what happens is because of the 3D curb, the car actually just bounces like once or twice, and all it does is just skips you a little bit past the corner. And because of that, it makes the left end super tight, and you become so out of line. It just becomes like half a tenth here, half a tenth there, and you just never gain it back. And all you want to do here, you're setting the first part up for the second part for the angle. So on the way in, middle part of the curb, but at this point, fully on the curb, you see like we're literally touching the gravel nearly on the way in. Already back on the power. Very key to be very smooth with the throttle input here. It's very, if you start jumping on the throttle, spiking it here and there, the car will move around a lot and it will cause the rears to overheat. So just be a bit wary of this. But it's balance the power on the way in. As you can see, I hold it like 50-60%, just hold it there the entire time on that first curb just to keep the car in a nice balance window. Come off the curb, build the power up. As you can see, like you saw the little traction lights, they just flash a little bit as the car is like compressing off the curb. But then from here, up on the throttle again. I then do a downshift to second. I did this in the Ferrari, I also did this in the Mercedes. The reason I preferred doing this was with the second part of the chicane here, with if you've seen the real life videos, they're like fully cutting over this and get away with it. With iRacing, with how this curb is, as soon as you do that, you just either get a slowdown on here, or you just get a really horrible like snap on the exit when the rear then touches the curb on the exit. So you just got to be a bit careful of that. And with iRacing, the best way I'd probably say of doing it, you actually just want to do like a little cut, like just have your left wheels here. Not fully over and not going around it. Just enough to hook the car. As you can see, if I go to chase now, it's just half and half perfectly. And you just do this, just roll it around the corner. But the biggest thing I would say here is just be very, very patient. If you jump on the throttle now and you just drive the car a bit too far over to the middle of the track, it just makes the right coming up super tough, especially on this new build with how the gravel is and how the 3D curb, with the curb being a lot higher than previously. So you've got to really set it up. So you've got to keep the car tight here to the left hand side. So yeah, I'll wait a little bit. Again, being very patient on the throttle, up to 50-60%. Just hold it, hold it, hold it. Even now, you see for like a few meters, I just balance the throttle just to try and keep the car aiming to this left hand side curb here. You want to be aiming to get up onto, or be next to this as your rotation point for the right hander next. So quite late, now 100% throttle, you can see we're actually, chase, we're well past the corner here, we're well into the next part of the sector. From here, 100% throttle, up on the curb, just get your left wheels up on it. It can be very easy to dip a wheel on top and then just lose the car, so just be a bit careful of that. But just make sure you're up on this curb, and then as soon as you come off that curb, drop the power down to like 50%, and then slowly try and hold it around 50-60%. So with this curb itself, you can either cut over it or you have to like late apex it. It's a very weird curb. It's kind of driver dependent on what you want. For me, I always liked using this curb even on the old build. So for me, I always try to maximize using the actual curb and bouncing on it. Other people will try and go around it. So kind of pick what you want. Also, it's car dependent. The Ferrari can get away with this, but the NSX couldn't. So just keep that in mind for this week. But for the curb itself, you want to be like rolling in, and then as soon as you get to the curb and hit the curb, that's when you want to be back on power. You see, you're back on power now, 100%, and use all the road on the exit. You can get away with dipping a wheel in the gravel here. It won't affect you too much in lap time, lucky enough. But if you're just a little bit too greedy, you can get the off track as well. So just be a bit wary of that. But I would just try and aim for this, like get your left wheels on the AstroTurf here. From here into Rivage. I'd probably say this week, this was the toughest corner on the entire track, due to how the car wants to move around the way in. So you've got to be a bit wary of this. So, see the curb here on the outside. This is kind of a nice little reference for your braking. Just be nice and progressive on the brakes. Don't just jump on the brakes at 80% and expect it to grip on the way in. Just slow build up to about 50-60%. Just hold it there, and you can see I just have a slow arc into the corner. No sudden movements. I'm not cranking the steering, not jabbing on the brakes. Just be nice and smooth on the way in. The smoother you are on the way in, the better the exit will be. And all you want to do is you're trying to aim to kiss the apex at this point here, easily marked out for us with this like AstroTurf part on top of the curb here. So you want to apex your right wheel here. And at that point, just release the brakes ever so slightly just to allow a bit more rolling rotation into the corner. Again, now I'll come off the brakes a bit more at the second point. And then once you're around this part and you see this part of the curb here, so once your wheels are now at this point, if I go to chase, you'll see as well. As soon as I'm like near this curb where you see this AstroTurf, this is where you want to bring the power in. It's a very misleading corner on getting on the power a bit too early. If you jump on the power like now, you might get away with it in qualifying due to like with how the tyres are, but I wouldn't recommend it in the race. If you're on the power now, the car goes out wide, you just put a load of load into the tyre, and it's just terrible with traction through the race because of it. But at this point, I'll just keep it a little bit tighter, just roll it through the corner, be nice and patient. You see, even now I'm like hesitating on the power just to try and keep it as tight as I can to this inside curb. Build it in, again, same as previous in Le Cobb, just bounce the throttle, just be nice and patient. Be nice and patient, and as soon as I can get the lock off, so towards the exit, now 100% throttle. The reason is because as well, if you're out here, it makes it super tough to get the car back over to the right hand side for No Name. If you're over here, it's a bit less work and a bit less effort to get it over to the right hand side for No Name. And into No Name, quite tricky, especially now with like the new profiling, but same concept as before, where you try and get up on the outside curb, then from there roll in and power through the exit. But up on top of the curb, recommendations to this is you need to either be fully on it like this or not on it. If you just dip a wheel onto it, the car will just instantly bounce the right rear, and it's terrible through the corner, and you get no exit because of it. So I would recommend either being fully on it like this or just on the white line. But from here, in the Ferrari, you can actually do a lift off and short shift, then power through the corner. Or you can leave it in second. Some cars will be third here, some cars will be second, just depending on the gearing. Either is absolutely fine. But for the Ferrari, I just do a little trail brake. As soon as I come off the curb, roll in. And then as soon as you get your left wheels on the actual curb itself here, now on power, and just slowly feed it in, all the way up to the exit. If you jump on the throttle now, you're just going to run out into the gravel. If you're in the gravel on the exit of No Name, you've got on power too early. It's just the normal rule for it. And if you're sliding around as well, it's the same concept. You've got on the power too early. Best way to do it is just roll it in and get on the power as soon as you are about to hit this curb. So now, up on the curb, and I just slowly feed the power in and let the car run all the way out. You can get away with dipping a wheel out here on the exit, no problem at all. On the way to Pouhon. Unfortunately with Pouhon, looking off on the older build, we had like a little reference here on the outside as your braking and turning in point. We don't have that anymore, unfortunately, so it's kind of just like a bit of an instinct thing. But this week, where it being a bit colder, you can go in a little bit harder. Probably best unknown reference, you got like these lines here. You got this line and this line here. So midway along the curb, brake. But again, similar to previous in Rivage, just be nice and patient on the brake. Just be progressive. Don't just jump on it and jump straight to like 70% and expect the car to just instantly just work and grip. You've got to be nice and smooth with the brakes into here. Just roll it in because of the braking. Slow releasing the brake pressure. Come off the brakes now. You want to be getting your left wheels on the white line. Be super tight to this curb, but obviously don't hit the curb because it'll bounce the car off. Just build the power in slowly, and you shouldn't really be touching 100% until you get alongside where this exit, like the end of the curve, is here. It's that nice little reference I use is because with this, I know I won't run the risk of ever dipping a wheel out here on the outside curb. Because if you dip a wheel out here, especially on the edge here, the car can just instantly snap for some reason with this 3D curb. Just be a bit careful of that. And also, if you're running out here every lap, you're just going to kill the tyres. You just got to be really patient for here. You see, like at this point on the exit, my right wheels are just on the red and orange. No real risk of running the car over here. Then with that, it's 100%. Keep the car over to the left from here. Into Piff Path. 50-meter board, or where the curb is here on the inside. Obviously, the bridge for me in the replay, like this sign shows here, but for my actual graphic settings when I'm actually driving, this isn't here, so there's no reference of that for me. But normally it's just before the curb here in the 50-meter board. Again, similar concept to the previous two corners, just a nice, slow, progressive build of brake pressure. See, like 65%. Dip wheel up on the curb is obviously, again, similar to Lacombe, just trying to widen the entry up. Unfortunately, this curb can just cause the front end to like skip and bounce, and then you miss the entry point to the first part of the complex. So just be a bit wary of that. So just like try and get your left wheels, like there's a kind of like a gutter here. So just use that as like your like a little bit of extra road on the way in. But from here, down one gear for me in the Ferrari, so down to third. So with the first part of this, you want to late apex it, so miss and don't try and attempt to cut on this curb. Obviously, in the previous build, you were like always trying to like cut up onto this or be close as you can on the way in. Now, unfortunately, you kind of have to miss the first part and like mid-apex the corner. See, I trail brake it in. I slowly release the brake pressure once I'm going into the actual apex of the corner. And your golden ticket, or like your reference to get back on the power and where you should be apexing it, is again, lucky enough, labelled for us being the AstroTurf on top of the curb. This is like the most perfect point at the corner for where you should be getting back on throttle, or where you should be getting up on the curb or close to the curb. It's right here. As you see, we trail brake it all the way in. Now we're up the curb itself, you'll see, on the power. And with that also, you'll feel it when you're driving. With this curb, at the point of where this AstroTurf is, the car just grips up huge. Like the white line here just gives you a load of grip. So with that, just keep that in mind when you're driving. You want to be aiming to get on power around this point here. On power, again, just be a bit gentle. Don't just jump on the power like up to 100% and expect it to grip. Just up to 80 and just hold it. Just be nice and patient. Hold it tight all the way around. You see I come off the curb a little bit now. Up to 100%, but when you're straight into the next left. Off the power, just like fully come off it and then get back on it again. Just like a little lift and then back on. Just allows the car to rotate in for you. As you see here, I just roll in. Power, again, wants to be back on just at the end of this AstroTurf and where the gridding starts. If you're on power now, you're just going to understeer wide. So you see I slowly build the power in. Again, nice and close to the curb here on the inside. And now 100%. And with that, you can run the car all the way out. If you're, again, same as No Name, bouncing in the gravel here, you just got on power too early on the left, unfortunately. And also with that, with the Piff Path, I would recommend if you're like using a lot of steering lock, you'll feel it as well, especially in the next two corners. You'll have no grip. You've got to be really smooth with the steering input, especially on this new build of Spa. It really, really punishes you for overheating the tyres. But from here, bring it over to the left hand side. Unfortunately, I would say you don't really want to be cutting over the grass now on the way in. Before into here, you used to be able to like cut up onto the grass, up onto the curb, and use that as like a little like entry point and widen the corner up, etc. You can't do that now. Every time I try to dip a wheel here, the car just got super loose on the way in. So you want to try and just aim to use either this part of the curb or just the white line, unfortunately, this time. Braking wise, 50%, 60% around that area is fine. Just be nice and smooth again with the brakes. Up on the curb, early turning, just trail brake all the way in, and you want to pick up the power, again, funny enough, like I mentioned before in the previous corners, just before you get to the end of this green Astro and where the gridding starts. Lucky enough, all these curbs like labelled for us, like marked out for us quite nicely, so here, up on this a little bit, don't have to use this curb, but I just used a little bit on this lap. But just going to be a bit patient on the power, so I don't got 100% until pretty late. If you jump on the 100% power now, you run the risk of just the car just driving a bit too far forward into the gravel. And especially if you get any sort of gravel at this point here, it just bogs the car down. It has no run then. So just be a bit wary of that. You can get away with dipping a wheel like here. It's absolutely fine. It didn't really affect lap time. But if you're getting it here, it really slows you down and you just never get the run up to Blanchimont. But from here, you see in the gravel now, but trying to use as much as possible. Just trying to widen the engine up here. Pretty early turning, you see like the curb here, there's like a bump here and there's a bump here on the apex. You've got to be careful of these, unfortunately. Off the bump, early turning. The compression is there, unfortunately. Like, it's kind of hard to explain when you're just doing it on a video, but when you're driving, you'll feel it. There's this awful bump here on the way in. The best way to do that is you just got to go at the corner a bit earlier than you think. If you try and go around it, the problem is in GT3, you just understeer a little bit too far wide, and because of how the runoff is here, there's just no extra road, you end up straight in the gravel if you go wide. So you just got to go at the corner super tight now, aiming for your right wheels to touch like the white line here. As you can see, touch the white line. With that, I then do the shift up, and you should just use all this road. You can either just end up on the white line, or you commit to the AstroTurf here on the outside. If you're like half and half here, this is the problem where the car will then bottom and like drag and go straight, and you lose so much time doing that. So at this point here, you either have to commit to the runoff or no runoff. Unfortunately, you can't go half and half now. And then from here, we've got a nice, easy run up to Blanchimont. A little tip I would say is just use a little bit of road here on the outside. There's no off track here, so just use a, well, there is one, but obviously at this point here there isn't. Just helps you widen the entry up. Be nice and smooth, nice and close to the curb. Use the runoff curb. Then into the bus stop. Unfortunately, I think this week it's a tailwind, especially on this lap I did. It was a tailwind into the bus stop, so it's quite tricky with the braking. Normally you'd probably brake between this white line and just before the 100 board. It's really wind dependent, so just keep an eye on that. But on this lap I just brake just after the white line and before the 100 board. And for me on this lap it's 100% brake. Just smash the brake on the way in. Very aggressive to get the car slowed down due to the tailwind. Trying again, similar to on the previous build, like we didn't have the grass here, we just had that long curb. But you still want to try and do the same thing where you just before you turn in, you have your left wheels up on this outside curb. Just ever so slightly on the outside of the curb. All this is just allowing is just to widen the entry up here. This is a lot tighter, it feels like when you drive it, so just got to be a bit careful, especially because the curb feels a lot bigger now with a 3D scan. So just allowing yourself to use a little bit more road on the entry just helps the way in with the approach. Turning point is, you see where there's like all the rubber markings here are on the white line, where they fade here at the end, so quite a late turning. This point here, start turning in. You want to aim for the second part of this curve. If you're trying to get your wheels in this part here, you're just going to go straight. You've got to try and aim for like this top part of the curve. You see how it's flat and then slowly rises? You want to aim for this part of the curve here on the rise. At this point, up on the curb, a little bit of throttle, and just slowly feed it in. With the 3D curbing here, you'll notice, especially in the Ferrari, the traction was awful if you were a bit too aggressive on power. If you was like 5% over, the rear would slip horribly. You should be nice and patient. You see, I've actually still got the steering lock here as well. I'm trying to keep the car as far over to the middle as I can to maximise the left. Up on power, again, slowly build it in. I don't really even get to 100% because you don't really have the time with how you have to slowly feed the power in. If you get to 100%, you're probably running the risk of the whole rear sliding. Then into the left, little dab of brake, trail brake it in, early turning, up tight on the curb, and then I just bring the power in 40-50%, hold it, and slowly feed it in. And with the exit curb here, kind of with how you come off the last curb. If you go off the last curb a bit tighter, don't use the runoff. Or if you're like in my position, you have to commit to the runoff and you have to go like this. If you're just like dipping a wheel here, the car will have so much interference, you'll have no run to the line. You can even hear it now if I play it. Like there, you just hear it just like blipping. So just be a bit wary of that, especially on qualifying laps, you can lose a little bit to the line. So either want to be right up on top, so if I go to chase, like this, or just on the white line. If you're like just fully just driving on this, then you're just never going to get a run to the line. And with that, it is the lap completed for Spa this week.